Today we are going to be making some incredibly beautiful, magical, scientific, color-changing noodles using red cabbage as our secret ingredient. First things first, go ahead and chop some red cabbage in whatever shape you would like and then throw them into a pot of boiling water. It's nice for the water to be hot because that'll speed up the extraction process for the molecule that we're interested in that will actually change color, called anthocyanins. So the cyan means blue, and antho means flower, and ins is basically just stuff. Anthocyanins are present in all kinds of plants that are purple and pink, even roses and blue pea flowers, and you can see that it makes a beautiful shade of this purplish blue color at this point when we just have had the purple or red cabbage sitting in the boiling water. Once we've got it cooked down a little bit, once the cabbage is a little bit wilted, we're gonna go ahead and drain this liquid out. I didn't choose the best setup here, splash out a little bit, but do what works best for you and try to limit the mess. But what you're gonna wanna do is basically collect some of the blue liquid and separate the cabbage out from it so that you have some cabbage that is ready to saute in a nice big bowl or jar or jug or bucket of beautiful blue liquid. Now we're going to cook our rice noodles. So I've got these really nice rice stick noodles that don't even need to be cooked. You can just go ahead and stick them in warm water to let them soften up. And I really like this rice vermicelli kind of style noodle because they actually hold up really well to being overcooked and also simultaneously, for some reason, don't need to be cooked very vigorously. So I'm just going to go ahead and put them into the water, and you can see they take on the color really quickly already, and just gonna let this go ahead and soak for probably around 10 minutes or so. You can basically just monitor these, and once they're soft enough, I literally just take a bite out of a noodle to test. You can go ahead and drain them. On the other hand, if you are using thicker, sturdier rice noodles that do need to be cooked, you can go ahead and just put this blue water into a pot and boil the rice noodles until they're done, and then drain them and perhaps coat them with a little bit of oil so they don't stick all together in a giant clump. Okay, now it is time to make our sauce that's going to be the ingredient that actually changes the color of our noodles. So basically we want to make something acidic on the pH scale, where 7 is neutral, which is just the pH of water, and things like lemon, lime juice, vinegar is going to be acidic, and things like baking soda are basic. Essentially, what that means is of all of the ions that are going to be floating around in solution in the sauce, we want them, rather than having more hydroxide ions like in a basic solution, to have more hydrogen ions in an acidic solution. I definitely went a little overboard making my sauce with all of these different ingredients, which I'll list in the description. Basically, all you really need is some lime juice, lemon juice, or vinegar mixed with a little bit of water for the reaction. Alrighty, now that we've got our sauce done and our rice noodles are still soaking, we're gonna go ahead and start cooking our cabbage and put the pieces of this dish together. I'm gonna chop a little bit of garlic, throw it in with the cabbage to give it some extra flavor. And then I'm going to also add a little bit of salt, which will help draw a little bit of excess moisture out of the cabbage so that it stays nice and crunchy. And in the meantime, I was boiling some water so I could just throw in some bok choy that I also had in the fridge. I love eating rice noodles because you can basically just throw in whatever produce you want and serve it with a little bit of garlic and soy sauce, and it's always going to taste good. It's just a plus that today we are making some really cool color-changing, pH-sensitive noodles. So things are starting to get a little hectic in the kitchen. My rice noodles are done, so I'm draining them, and I wanted to save just a little bit of the blue water in case I wanted to make something else cool, maybe some color-changing spring rolls or dumplings. I don't know, you tell me if you have any ideas, because it's still in my fridge and I would love to make something interesting. And I am going to go back and stir the cabbage, check on the bok choy. This might be a little bit too hectic for some people, but I kind of like the thrill of having a bunch of fire on at once, a bunch of food cooking at once, and just running around in the kitchen and having everything kind of all come together at one time. I do have to admit, you know, in the spirit of transparency and science, that my bok choy was a bit overcooked and the shiitake mushrooms were a bit undercooked, so I didn't really show you the process that well there, but my cabbage was perfect, and a lot of it had to do with adding these few extra splashes of soy sauce at the very end, just as the cabbage was about to be done. But without any further ado, it is now noodle time and science time. So here is my acidic sauce that I had created earlier, and we're just going to pour it on slowly. So we've got all these water molecules and extra hydrogen ions floating around because the pH is low and it's acidic. And here I'm drawing an anthocyanin molecule, and you can see that it's got a lot of oxygen and hydrogen atoms as part of this molecule. And the hydrogens from this high pH are going to bond with the sites that it can react with. And as these bonds get made, the molecule changes color from a bluish color to a more violet and red color as the electrons move around. And the reason why the color changes when these bonds are formed is because the bonds actually make a difference in what wavelengths of light that this molecule will absorb, especially if you play around with pHs that aren't as delicious as this sauce, including more basic ones like adding baking soda, or super acidic ones that will turn the solution red. So I'm pretty curious what would happen if I, instead of just using this acidic sauce, if I put my noodles into something that was more basic than the water that I had cooked them in. Perhaps I could have made a different pot of water with some baking soda added to lend some hydroxide ions instead of my acidic solution that lended hydrogen ions. And we could really get a full rainbow of delicious noodles to eat. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this sauce was probably not my best, so I do have some tips on improving it, because we don't just want our food to look good, we also want it to taste good. And as usual, my savior is Lao Gan Ma spicy chili crisp or black bean chili oil, whatever you got. Just go ahead and add your flavors now, whatever you like, because we wanted our solution to be colorless or as close to colorless earlier. We didn't want to make a sauce that was really dark or had a bunch of color on its own, because we wouldn't have been able to see the magic happen. And as they say, science is just magic that works. And I think this is a prime example of how we can get our understanding of science to create some really beautiful things. So I hope you try it out, and thanks for watching. And if you like my videos, please subscribe, and I would love to see you next time.